7:39, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Welcome on in. Johnny B. Ken Weaver here as well. Want to bring on from the Newsmaker Hotline, Gabe Kaminsky, investigative reporter for the Washington Examiner. And Gabe, an incredible story. And I'm quite frankly shocked that the Harris campaign didn't see this about running mate Tim Walz, where he has apparently a very close relationship with this Muslim cleric who actually celebrated Hamas's October 7th attack last year on Israel, among other things. There's a piece of audio that has come out. I don't know if this is from this morning or when this was, but I'm going to go ahead and play it. This is Tim Walz, Minnesota governor, talking about this Muslim cleric who celebrated the terrorist attack against Israel.
I would like to, first of all, say thank you to Imam. I am a teacher, so when I see a master teacher, I know it. And over the time we've spent together, one of the things I've had the privilege of is seeing the things in life through the eye of a master teacher.
Wow. To
try and get the understanding.
So he calls him a master teacher. Now, put that in context, because this imam, Asad Zaman, he's a horrible guy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Last week, the Washington Examiner had reported that on at least 5 occasions, as Minnesota's governor, Tim Walz had met with Asad Zaman of the Muslim American Society of Minnesota, a Muslim cleric or imam. The reason that is notable is because Asad Zaman, on October 7th, as you had just mentioned there, had defended the Hamas-led attacks, but also he has other controversial social media posts in the past, such as in 2015, he promoted a pro-Adolf Hitler movie on his Facebook page, and he also has on one occasion, he has posted a official Hamas press release from Hamas's website on his Facebook, among other posts. And so the latest report in the Washington Examiner, which was actually published about 2 hours ago on our page and is now trending, is that Governor Tim Walz, while the Kamala Harris campaign came out on Friday and alleged that Tim Walz has no relationship with this imam, the update to that story is that is only further contradicted, because in the footage that we obtained, a portion of which you just played, 9 full minutes of that footage is on our website right now. It shows that Tim Walz is discussing his relationship with this imam, and he calls him master teacher. He says at one point that he's learned several lessons from this imam. And so, you know, the impetus really goes in the Harris campaign now to have to defend their prior statement.
So they came out with a statement, and then you guys unearthed the video. Was that all by design?
They released a statement, and yes, we obtained this video, which is from February 2018. Mm-hmm. It was in Minnesota at one of the Muslim American Society's Islamic centers. And this was footage we obtained after this story, after the story and after their statement. And, look, it only further, again, as said, it only further contradicts their claim.
I got to ask, is this common knowledge in Minnesota? I mean, you got Tim Walz, the governor, of course, now running mate. And Minnesota has a very high Muslim population, a lot of Somalians as well, all this. I think everybody knows that with Ilhan Omar. But is this, sounds like a special relationship between Walz and this Imam Asad Zaman. Is this common knowledge amongst people in Minnesota?
Look, the thing I would note is that in this video, we had previously reported that on these 5 occasions Tim Walz had met with this person. Clearly that number is increased now. So we have this video here, which we were not aware of as we published that prior story. And in this speech that we published today, Tim Walz is mentioning prior occasions prior to 2018 in which he was meeting with this imam. And this video that we published here today, this is when Tim Walz was campaigning to be Minnesota's governor. When we published our story last week, we were unearthing times that Tim Walz met with this Muslim cleric, this anti-Semitic Muslim cleric, while while he was a governor of Minnesota. So this actually takes us back and provides a further window into a relationship that is apparently broader and a longer relationship.
And I got to tell you, his message about this cleric, given what we know about what happened on October 7th, and that this cleric celebrated this, makes this conversation, or I should say this choosing of Tim Walz as the running mate of Kamala Harris all the more baffling, because now this is going to be a second lie that the Harris campaign is going to have to acknowledge. The first one, of course, was the stolen valor, and now this, where, as you just mentioned, they said that there was no relationship between these two. Now here you have this video, and I just wonder, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this, Gabe Kaminsky from the Washington Examiner, but at what point does the Harris campaign say, you know what, we're going to have to regroup and go back to square one? Gabe Kaminsky joining us, investigative reporter for the Washington Examiner, breaking this story that keeps unfolding about how Tim Walz, Minnesota governor, and of course Kamala Harris's running mate, hosted a Muslim cleric who celebrated Hamas's October 7th terrorist attack against Israel. Over 1,000 people, of course, as everyone knows, killed. And this guy also promoted a pro-Hitler film popular among neo-Nazis. And I find it interesting that it was like last year, maybe a couple of years ago, Donald Trump unwittingly had a dinner with a white supremacist, if I remember right. I think it was Kanye that shows up with this dude, and they have dinner together. And Trump says, I don't know who this guy is. But the left and the media just went absolutely crazy on this story. Yet the media seems silent on this.
It's a great point. And look, Trump didn't have an excuse to, be meeting with someone such as Nick Fuentes, former president of the United States. It shouldn't be a controversial position, right? The former president shouldn't be meeting with someone who, an anti-Semite and Holocaust denier such as Nick Fuentes, just like it shouldn't be controversial or political to report on how any in this case Tim Walz meeting with this individual. And I would just note again, the Anti-Defamation League, a nonpartisan group that the right, in fact, often criticizes for being partisan. The Anti-Defamation League told us, quote, Zaman has a troubling history of playing into classic anti-Jewish themes and justifying violence against Israel. Given his hurtful remarks post-October 7th and absent any recognition of the pain he has caused the Jewish community, we urge all public officials and leaders to avoid meeting with him in the future. Those who have met with Imam Zaman should clarify that they don't agree with his toxic views about Jews in the Jewish state. That's from the Anti-Defamation League.
So I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse or if you want to comment on this or not, but we got now two, seems to me, pretty big controversies. This one that you have unearthed, and also the whole stolen valor thing, which they also have now had to walk back. Is it beyond the pale to think that maybe they might want to regroup? Has that ever happened in politics before, where they realize, you know what, we should have vetted this guy a little bit more?
Look, I can't say the internal thinking of the Harris campaign and whether or not they'd be doing internal deliberations over their VP nominee. All I can say is what we've seen publicly so far is that the Harris campaign has shied away significantly from media. In this case, they haven't actually addressed our story. And when I say shied away from media, that is, I really mean that. The Time magazine yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, maybe it was this week, published a profile of Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris was on the cover. And it was a very positive, glowing, one could call it a puff piece, right? I don't think that'd be a reach. That entire piece did not quote anyone from Kamala Harris's team. In fact, it notes in the story that the Kamala Harris campaign did not respond or declined to comment. It was one of those in the story. So you're telling me that even the most positive story, the most glowing story, literally imaginable on the campaign, perhaps an in-kind campaign contribution,
yep,
that Kamala Harris's team can't even weigh in on that. I think that speaks volumes.
It does, and it's a sad state of affairs. It's definitely something where you look at this, and this is how the media these days, the mainstream media, is operating. And there's absolutely no journalistic curiosity. By and large, they're not holding Kamala Harris or Tim Walz accountable for not speaking to the media. They're counting on their surrogates to do that for them. But at some point, we do have to, number one, we got to find out some actual policy points. And number two, that are not Donald Trump's. And number two, in my opinion, this would be a question that has got to be asked. Do you believe this story is going to unfold to the point where the media simply cannot ignore this?
Yeah, I can't speak to the trajectory of the story, but we'll stick by the reporting. And these both stories, again, they both show that Kamala Harris's VP running mate has met with a Muslim cleric who has controversial past ties and opinions. Beyond controversial, reprimandably posted a pro-Hitler movie. Yep. And beyond hosting him, right, they obviously have some sort of personal relationship. And that's just the kind of thing we'd hope, we just want to inform the public about. And whatever happens after that story, that's beyond us.
All right, Gabe, how can people find you on Twitter?
You can follow me on Twitter at GE Kaminsky, GEKAMINSKY. And, if you go to the WashingtonExaminer.com, you can find this story today. It should be on our front page.
All right. Thank you very much.